Where were you? We're just talking about.
Well,
No, I'm just,
Yeah.
Arizona.
Oh,
We stayed there for so.
but I have all the wires and everything tucked in.
The Scots.
Again,
Scottsdale.
speaker.
It's nice out there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. I mean, you know, we would have.
I mean, I expect it not to turn out well, but I assume it's gonna do something.
Me too.
But, yeah, that's fine.
I just got goosebumps.
You got it down in the afternoon, you could sit, you could go out.
It's gonna go right up on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Indianapolis, we're just down.
Very
But
cool
there's not
stuff.
much to go over, so.
We had these and between there and our headquarters, just down the street.
Yeah, I saw Matt out of River St. Joe for the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
And I thought you were coming back, so I asked him if you were gonna be in town. He said, I don't know where he is. But then it was funny because Kevin introduced me to Matt and his wife, and he said, this is the mayor. And she goes, are you really the mayor? And Matt goes, you don't drive up Bentley, do you? And I said, excuse me? He said, the mayor of Dowagiac drives a Bentley, and or now
Now he's been around it
now he's got
a couple weeks ago. He's had the Lamborghini.
well, Matt said he's driving.
Probably got one of those vanity places.
The Bentley is pristine.
The Bentley?
Yeah, he took me for
We
a
were
ride.
talking about it the other day.
Getting to go there for, and, he took me on a tour of the project.
We were talking to Kevin, we didn't realize
But he's got more.
that's one of the bigger
But that's our
major
Yeah,
cities in
industry.
Cass
Yeah,
County.
in the wine
What
industry.
is the?
Do I,
So, he's been
5,500 people. And start to think about the different cities in Cass County, New England.
That's true, I guess.
You're like, it is.
Yeah.
It literally is the
I
biggest.
never would have thought that would be the
You
case.
don't realize how much land is in Cass that doesn't encompass cities.
Right.
I mean, Berrien County's not, I was telling him about that story with Kevin that we figured out, or we realized that Dowagiac's the biggest city in Cass.
They can come in and.
Yeah,
I think it is.
5,500, believe it or not. It doesn't look like it.
largest?
Yeah.
What else would be larger, right?
Cass would be the closest too, and there's after that.
Gas is actually pretty small.
Yeah.
Yeah, just say there, there's not much to cast.
I think it's
I thought the Rochester was bigger than that though.
Yeah, oh, I thought it was about right. I was surprised it was that much, really. But they've got industry to do them.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if any of you saw that email Tom Jolly sent out about I registered for that so that we can, I'm gonna take our vision book and bring some proposals and, cause honestly, sometimes that's the best way to lobby is just be in the right room with the right person. I'm gonna play up the whole, we're a bedroom community, the city you used to be mayor for, you should really pay
There you
attention to
go.
us, the nicest place in America, here's some projects you can help fund.
You know, if you're,
Did we have a Chicago influence too? I mean, a lot of
Absolutely.
second homes and business owners.
But if any of you guys are interested in coming, let me know, we can get you registered.
It's Cambridge.
Jeopardy vote.
And just for anyone who was wondering, Rich was supposed to be back today, his flight was delayed out of Spain, he'll be back Monday.
I
I
texted
him yesterday because I'm like,
Rich,
where are you?
Where is he, Spain?
Yeah, he, when he was doing his master's, I believe, he did a like study abroad type thing and did an internship with this company that sells leather, Spanish leather. And apparently he made good friends with the owner of the company and now the owner's son is getting married, so they invited him to come to the wedding.
It's nice that COVID is over and you don't have to worry about not knowing anything like that, you can travel again. Everybody ready? Okay, I'd like to call the special meeting of Buchanan City Commission, Friday, May 6, 2022. It is 8:01. Roll call, please.
Dennison.
Here.
Whedon.
Here.
Downey.
Here.
Money.
Present.
Swett.
Here.
Yep, four.
Thank you. There's no public present for public comment. I don't know where to amend this agenda at because there's,
Yeah, I guess there's
With
not
no
a
approval
section
of the
there,
agenda,
so
but
we can
I
just do it now and then just note that.
do it now, yeah. So the agenda that was posted had no executive comments or manager comments or commissioner comments, so I asked them to add that. So could I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
Sean will make said motion.
Thank you. Is there support?
You said, but you didn't put any commissioner comments on here.
There weren't any.
I reprinted it with it on there, cause this
This
morning
is
I heard you wanted that.
I don't see any commissioner comments on this agenda.
Go to the next page.
Oh, you meant like at the end, I thought you
Yeah.
meant synopsis of the interview.
No.
No.
There was nothing on that. So we have a motion. Is there support?
This money I'll support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Dennison.
Yes.
Whedon.
Yes.
Downey.
Yes.
Money.
Yes.
Swett.
Yes.
Carries.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the treasurer position.
Yes, I can go ahead and speak to that. So we had basically a HR subcommittee, as it were, informally, of Commissioners Swem and Downey, and they interviewed two candidates, the first being Deborah Perez, the second is Shelley or Rochelle Lenke. We did just finalize, good morning, Ashley. We did just finalize the interview with Ms. Lenke just yesterday. Deborah Perez was just over a week ago. So today we're gonna be meeting to discuss those interviews, get recommendations from staff and from the commissioners who perform the interviews, and then allow the commission an opportunity, should they so desire, to make an offer of employment to either candidate.
Would either of the commissioners that were in on the interview process like to make any comments concerning the applicants?
Well, I think from my seat, I disagree with City Manager Grace's recommendation. Both of candidates were fairly solid candidates, I would say. We interviewed Ms. Perez first, Ms. Linke second. It's a nice way to put this. Heather had done a pre-interview on Ms. Perez already prior to us interviewing her as a group. And then apparently, until we found out yesterday, she had gone over much of the material that we had asked questions on that isn't in alignment with the notes that we received, so. Yeah, I'm going to elaborate on that, so. Specific comments related to budget and reconciliation were asked in the interview. I don't know if you guys received copies of the interviews.
The
Those are supposed to go
the audio did not work, so we were unable to send those.
So there was concerns related to the position, with Ms. Perez. I know Heather followed up on that, but unfortunately from where I stand, I find it very odd that those questions weren't consistently answered in our interview as well as the other interviews, and there were no notes from the first interview for us to reference back to, which I requested. So Ms. Linke was brought to the table by myself after attending the countywide treasurers meeting and having a conversation with the countywide treasurer, asking if there's any recommendation of qualified candidates in the area, to which Ms. Linke was recommended by her as one of the top in the county, as well as having a strong working relationship with the county established already. And then I could see through my observation that she was well networked within the county of treasurers. So considering everything that happened with our last treasurer and our inability to get them up to speed, I don't have faith that somebody that doesn't have connections and a working relationship with the county already will have the necessary support within City Hall to be successful, which is why I recommend Ms. Linke as our candidate. That's not Dane.
Any comments?
I'll say that, Ms. Linke started off pretty, slow interview, and you could tell right away it was a last minute interview. And, a couple minutes into it, she really started to relax and started to speak well, and, she definitely has, some good qualifications. Ms. Perez definitely had some good qualifications too. Like Patrick said, a few of the things that were mentioned there just made me a little uneasy too.
Can you elaborate on that? We weren't there. Or you, I mean,
I already shared why I wasn't comfortable with it.
would
It didn't remain consistent with what we saw in the meeting to the outside conversations that were being had. And the lady or Ms. Perez does not have any resources within the county, and Heather hasn't established those relationships yet. We just watched what happened with the treasurer that we said we could build up internally, and it did not work.
Sorry to interrupt, but can you, because I'm just on, I'm not following you, can you explain what you mean by things were consistent? Because I don't really.
We had specific conversations related to her roles around budgeting, reconciliation, and I believe there's one other topic that was recapped in Heather's email and the follow-up, but those were the very specific ones.
Do you mean that Mrs. Linke wasn't asked the same things? Or
Ms. Linke had a much more thorough interview. She was asked the same questions, but her interview was significantly more thorough because all the questions were asked in front of camera and I, whereas Ms. Perez was asked pre-questions before the interview, which we would have thought would have been able to translate to our interview.
Oh, because you'd already interviewed her before you sat.
Correct, and that was my intention, was to keep it consistent throughout, however, just with the timing of me only being aware of Ms. Lenke didn't allow for me to do a first interview before she did a second interview with the commission. So it wasn't my intent that it was inconsistent, it was just simply the matter of timing.
And that's a fair statement, I would agree, because it was, I mean, I was able to
It was
turn
like-
it
it was
very
last
quickly next day. That is accurate.
Would you three that sat in like to give your opinion of each candidate?
Yeah, I can give my interview experience of both candidates. Ultimately, I did try to solicit equal amounts of information from both candidates. Obviously, that's why it seemed different to Commissioners Swen and Downey, because I asked the questions of Shelley that I asked of Deborah in her first interview when they weren't present. And so that's probably where the discrepancy comes up. But again, when I asked the questions, I thought that the answers that Ms. Perez gave in her first interview were consistent with what she gave in the second interview. In my opinion, I thought it came down to more of just maybe a misunderstanding of the nuance of her answers. When I heard her answers, and I think it's more just because I'm more familiar with the technical jargon that she is referencing when she gives the answers, I felt like she was extremely straightforward and very specific to not overstate her experience and be very clear that yes, I'm very familiar with BS&A, very familiar with budgeting. However, here is where I could use some additional assistance. And in those areas, I didn't see any level of concern. Just being blunt, again, nothing against Shelley. I do think she would be a wonderful part of the team if she joined. But in my opinion, I felt she was more apt to do the reverse, where she would sort of overstate her experience, in my opinion, based on the way she described. Like she would say, yes, I have budget experience, and then we would do a little more deep dive. Can you explain what that is? It sounded more like it was I'm involved in the process and that I pass papers to the department heads, they give me feedback and I relay that on to the treasurer or the other teammates on her township team. Not to say that she doesn't do anything, but it sounded like a lot less involvement when I heard her answers. Based on that and the fact that, and it's really hard to understand until you've seen the differences between township finance and city finance. So township finance is typically centered around taxes. That's their biggest thing, and that is our biggest thing as well, however, almost equally large.
is our water sewer. So we already right there, just having utility billing, have doubled the financial expenditures and revenues to keep track of than a township, typically even more so. Beyond that though, we also have, because we're a designated street authority, we have Act 51, and every street repair, every street maintenance, every street construction, we have to account for all that. Those are significant sums. Treasurers in villages and townships never have to deal with that because the county does that through their road commissions. So those are two just, examples right off the cuff that actually add, I would say easily, like 125 to 130% more work compared to what a township or village treasurer does. So a lot of times folks coming from that background, they don't know what they don't know. They think I'm a treasurer, this translates to be the same thing. It's a lot more work, just putting it frankly. And so not that I don't think Shelley's capable of that, because I do think she could be capable of that, but she would require training. And I don't think that the training she would require would come cheaply or quickly. My recommendation in the motions here is, and again, I think she would fit in well with the team, very pleasant individual, but I would strongly recommend if we went with Ms. Lenke, that we would want to authorize initially for the first 3 months, 20 hours per week, followed by 15 hours per week for the following 3 months, and then down to about 10 hours per week for the next 6 months at a minimum, with either Blossom Land or Plant Moran to help supplement and provide her with that training. We're very much at capacity and over capacity here at the staff. I regularly put in 60 to 70 hours a week. Many of the salaried people minimum put in 50 hours a week. We just don't, being honest, have time to handhold and do that training ourselves.
I guess I should apologize for my ignorance in the interview then, but the commentary related to the supervisor or mayor, whatever he was, handling the financials of Fenville, I believe it was. I don't know how I would have misunderstood that. It was pretty clear to me.
And again, it's maybe just a matter of interpretation, and I clarified with her, and she told me that was the case, that their director that you're referring to assumed the role essentially of their city administrator, and it would be similar to what this used to be before I came aboard, which is that Julie would prepare the budget as treasurer, submit it to Bill, city manager, then he would make tweaks and changes and do formal presentation. When I clarified with Ms. Perez, she indicated that that's very similar to what she had done. She just was saying, I'm not the person who presents the final budget, which is accurate.
The way I took that commentary in the interview was that she virtually had nothing to do with the budget. I don't know about Cameron, but.
I agree, that's the way I took it too.
Okay, and again, there was that clarifying email, I don't know if you guys saw that, with additional statements Ms. Perez made. And I'm not trying to argue with you gentlemen by any means, I'm not.
The hard part is all those conversations happened outside of the interview committee.
Okay.
Have you followed up with our referral source from Ms. Linke? I would imagine the county clerk
Yes,
is
I did
very
speak with
credible.
Shelley.
And what
She
did
did.
Shelley have? No. Oh yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
Shelley. Yeah.
Shelley from Wasteland
They're both
County, yeah.
Shelley. And what did Shelley have to say about it?
She had positive comments to say. She said that every interaction she's had with her is very positive. And that she thinks she would be a great fit anywhere. She'd be a good team player based on her personality. Judging from that though, and the comments that I had Shelley clarify in the interview, the other Shelley, this is getting a little confusing with two Shelleys, but the candidate agreed, and that's my understanding, is that the treasurer actually has limited interactions with the staff. Not that it's not important, I fully agree that it's extremely important to have those relationships, but it's more once a year they get together to tie out the taxes, and then beyond that, they have phone conversations when they need assistance, and then they probably see each other, is it monthly? It's quarterly for the treasurer meetings.
Why didn't we receive follow-up communication related to that conversation?
Because I just had it yesterday and I was gonna relay it to you now.
Can we get input from the other two?
Yeah.
Thoughts on
Okay.
candidates?
I thought both of them were great. I see qualities in both of them. My big thing, I will take on my experience from coming from township to city, it is a different world. It is hard. It is two different things. Makes me lean towards Mrs. Perez because of that 10 years experience. And you're talking about, Mrs. Perez in her interview said it was her and the city administrator, and that's it in there. So she was handling taxes, all the window, all utility billing, all the reports, and agendas, packet, and running elections. That was impressive to me. Even if it is a smaller town, that is still one person doing a lot of people's jobs. So the multitask and being able to handle that, as we all know here, we are crazy busy. And we are pulled in every different direction. And I really thought that was great. With Shelley, I thought I loved her attitude about wanting to take on a challenge, because it will be a challenge here. It is not going to be easy by any means. And especially with between Courtney and Clint Moran, they have really made strides, but it's not done. So you're not walking in too easy. So I like both of that, but I think Mrs. Perez brings the experience with it. One thing with Shelley that concerned me was that she's not able to balance to BSNA, that she balances to a different system. That's big. Courtney can elaborate more on that. Never working with utility billing for Shelley, that was a downfall, I thought. Townships are slow. They do not have as much. So I can understand why she wants the challenge, and like I said, that's really great, but I think Mrs. Perez has that experience that we need here on this team. You're talking about people that have been here a year, 6 months, working through this, not having all the answers, and just relying on people, trying to figure it out together and trying to untangle. That's what I look for. Her experience will come in huge, and I don't think that she's gonna need the training that maybe Shelley might need. So my opinion is just based on her experience alone and the way she conducted herself in the interview, I thought she was very straightforward, in my opinion. I think she was nervous at first, but she opened up and you saw the personality come through. I think she would be a great asset to this team. I think Shelley would be a great asset to this team too, but I just think it's gonna take a little bit longer, and I don't know where the commission wants to go with that, if you're gonna wanna keep Plant Moran on, because I know that's been an issue with you wanting to be done with that. But if that's what the commission wants and willing to take on that expense, then it's ultimately your guys' decision.
Kelly brought up a good point from the interview. Heather, could you elaborate on Mrs. Perez's response related to her balancing within BSNA?
Yes, so Ms. Perez indicated that they did the switch from fund balance to BSNA similar to ours. And similar to our situation, they did it late enough in the game where fund balance had essentially been a dinosaur, for lack of a better term, software system, and had not been supported for a while and had errors and errors, which is a large part, but not the only part of the reason we had problems, but based on my conversation with her, was the main reason they had problems, is that it did not translate because it was not reconciled prior to transition. Again, because of the software glitches, which is pretty common for any group transitioning from fund balance to BSNA at this present time. She indicated when that transition occurred, because it was not balanced and reconciled when it did the transition, they have not yet been able to get it fixed, which is what we've spent literally close to $70,000 to $80,000 trying to fix, because it's a very difficult thing to do. And in a year and a half, they still hadn't accomplished that, but they also weren't, having Plan Moran fix it for them, so yes, that's a concern, but I don't view it as a major concern personally, because that's not something I would expect a treasurer to know how to do. That's more a skill set of someone with an expertise from Plant Moran, like a gentleman named Erman that we're having do it, because that's even beyond what Julie knows how to do. It's more of you have to have an understanding of the software itself to understand where the glitches could arise, and that's usually, I would assume there's very few people who have the expertise to be both a financial treasurer as well as a tech, guru to some degree.
So, to put those two comments side by side, Ms. Perez has only used BSNA for a year and a half.
Correct.
Never balanced it. Ms. Linky's used BSNA for 8 years, is fluid in almost all of it, except bookkeeper does the inputs into BSNA and Orinoco. That was what was discussed in both interviews.
Courtney, you wanna give us your input?
Sure. Okay, so I do just want, okay. It's a little bit more nerve-wracking, but, so I do just wanna make note, again, Heather and Calla touched on it, with the 10 years of experience. So I come from township deputy treasurer experience, myself, and so coming from the treasury experience I had in a township to here at the city, it is a huge difference. And it's very, very eye-opening of how big of a difference it really is. Because again, the financials are just at large, whereas at township, they're just a little bit smaller. And I feel like a deputy treasurer with the township, you know, it may just be my personal experience, but you're not exposed to as much as what a treasurer is. You're more so like just the day-to-day tasks. You don't have the at-large, that all goes to the treasurer, which Shelley did mention that a lot of that does go to him to make the final decisions. So the biggest thing with Ms. Perez that really stuck out to me was her experience with reconciling a BSNA. And Shelley did mention that she didn't have experience balancing a BSNA. And that's huge right now for us. That's what I've been working on since I started with Plant Moran, is figuring out how to balance a BSNA. And it is a huge task, not just with bank reconciling, but also general ledger balancing. It's very, very difficult, and the more that you dive in, the more that you find a tangled mess. So I just want to highlight, like right now, we still are, every single day, living in the past, trying to untangle the mess, trying to keep up with present tasks, and then also future audit prep. So with 10 years of experience with Ms. Perez, I really feel like that's something that needs to be highlighted and really thought about with the city treasurer. But overall, I know that you guys have the best interest for what is best for us, and I believe that either candidate will be great asset to our team. So, thank you.
Can you remind me, what was your position before you came here?
I was the deputy treasurer for Lincoln Charter Township.
How long again?
I was there a little over half a year, and then Calla pulled me here.
So we're happy to have people.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the ones that weren't in on the interview.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions for anyone?
No, I first of all, thank you for giving your narrative. I know it plays a role as somebody who's hired, you know, a couple hundred people in my lifetime and fired people as well. Unfortunately, this is the most difficult task because we're trying to fit the narrative for everybody up here, including yourselves, and make the right decision. I think that I'm happy to see that we're giving so much attention to this because we also know what happened with Stephanie, right? And that does, you know, weigh heavy on it. We've had conversations about that. We've all made bad hires if you've hired people. It doesn't mean she's a bad person, it's just a bad hire, right? So let's clear that up. I like both candidates. I appreciate the support for Ms. Perez. I think that that's a huge part of what we ran into with Stephanie. I just want to make sure that we're doing it from a skill set perspective, because I felt like we put the same energy behind Stephanie and we supported that, and then I think that there's still some egg on our face, at least I feel that way, because it wasn't, and we weren't informed soon enough that there was an issue. And I know we've had that communication as well, all of us have, that if it's not working, the sooner the better. So, you know, and looking through both of the candidates' resumes, and I put them side by side, and I started looking at their experience and the time spent doing specific things related to the position that they're hiring for, and it does appear that Ms. Perez does have more experience in this setting collectively over time, even though her experience for Ms. Linke was from 2014 to current. Your points of coming from the township for these two specifically to this situation does have a bearing on it. So it's not an easy decision. I think we have some good information from the Commissioner Swim, from her connection to the county and their recommendation. And apparently the treasurer for the county holds a lot of respect in the county. Apparently that individual is very strongly liked, and that their opinion about Ms. Lanke does have some bearing on that for me. So it's not easy. So I feel the same way you guys do. It's tough. I think we have two great candidates, which we went from nothing to do extremely strong candidates, which we were thinking that didn't exist. So I'm glad that we did our due diligence and kept pushing for different avenues instead of just Mr. Nielsen, right? Did a great job. You guys rich.
20 grand, I know he needs the MMA thing too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we did the right thing. I think we did push hard enough into the right areas to find the right people. So.
Mr. Money, comments?
Yeah, first off, I wanna thank Patrick and Cameron for, doing these interviews. I put a lot of faith in both of their, decisions. They both come from great backgrounds and everything. And as, Mark just said, both candidates have, great resumes sitting in front of me. They are both qualified candidates in my opinion. The only thing that I personally feel here is that Ms. Perez is being a little more leaned on by this group of ladies here that are working down here, and they seem to be able to get along with her, and it sounds like it could be a great working environment. We also heard that Ms. Lanky would also be a good fit. My personal feeling from hearing the three ladies is they like the way Ms. Perez would fit down here. Me personally, I think that makes up a lot as far as a work environment. And so that's basically what a lot of my decision is going to be based on, for the simple reason is, yes, they both are great candidates. And it's too bad that we didn't do this a while back and we wouldn't be in this predicament now. But that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I agree completely. I think I put a lot of weight behind the fact, I mean, and this is no disrespect to anybody on this commission, but no one in any of these 5 chairs has any municipal training or any work experience working in a municipality. So I put a lot of weight behind the fact that Heather, Callan, and Courtney all, like Ms. Perez, they're the ones that have to work with her, and they know the work that's involved. Courtney, especially coming from, township experience and knowing the differences in the workload. And I think as managers, if that's what you want to call us, I think that we need to listen to the people that are doing the job. So I'm going to put most of the weight behind what I'm being told. I didn't sit in on the interviews. I appreciate you guys doing that, and I appreciate your feedback. But I guess if I had to vote right now, I would vote for Ms. Perez based on what I'm hearing from the people who are actually doing the work. That's my opinion, but I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to add. Or if anyone would like to make a motion, or would like to have more discussion.
How important, Heather, do you feel is going to be with the experience in BSNA that Shelley has over Deborah?
Deborah's got the BSNA.
So,
Deborah's Ms. Perez. The
yeah, Ms. Perez.
So when you ask how, are you saying like, what are the pros and cons of each's experience? Do you want me to sort of lay that out? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, so Deborah has shorter time period of experience in BSNA, only about a year and a half. Shelley has significantly longer experience in BSNA. It sounds like if it wasn't the whole 8 years, it was close to the whole 8 years they utilized BSNA. So that's a big check in favor of Shelley. However, her involvement with BSNA, even though she used it for a long period, was very limited compared to the amount of involvement that Ms. Perez would have had with BSNA. Because in her role as a city treasurer, she would have been using BSNA for things like, double checking and validating the utility billing is correct. Double checking and validating that all of our expenditures for street projects and capital improvement projects are correct. And using the different software program modules that BSNA has that they wouldn't have a need for in the township. So I view it as not an apples to apples comparison in that way. So in my humble thought process, I feel like the more intensive experience with BSNA that Deborah had is important.
So,
Oh, sorry. However, I don't discount Shelley's 8 years of experience in BSNA. I just felt like a lot of the stuff that she was doing with it was limited, especially with the fact that she indicated that a lot of times she was utilizing either Excel spreadsheets or other software programs, and then giving information to the bookkeeper who would then do the entries in BSNA for her.
So, I found it pretty interesting after our recap after Shelley's interview. Heather gave us a little better understanding of the utility billing component, right? And the way I took that was match the bill to the person who got the bill, and she double checks that. And the other major component is the 5-year planning related to street infrastructure projects, et cetera, any of those departments. Which is something we're not doing today. So I just wanna make sure we're all on the same page, that we're holding a lot of weight on that, but it's not something we're actually getting done now. But I think we made clear where my position is, I do what I want, right?
It's always been a big component of mine when hiring people, and from a personality standpoint, right? Because it's not a protected issue, it's not something that has to do with sex, race, or gender. It's something that's kind of fluid, so I feel very comfortable asking this question. Because I know that when I hired people and they work with me and for me and around me, that was a big deal. Gaps can be adjusted and accounted for, but if they're not gonna be a good fit, just from the initial experience, right, it's hard in a 10-minute interview, 20-minute interview to gauge, but you can usually tell right away. So from that perspective, as much as it doesn't hold any weight compared to BSNA, I think it does hold weight in the functionality of our business here, right? So from everybody's perspective, does Ms. Perez seem to fit from a personality standpoint better than Ms. Linky? Not because one's better than the other, I'm saying strictly from their experience with these two and with the team here, because you guys have to deal with this every day, right? And Lord help us, we've seen things in the past that didn't go so well. And I don't know who was at fault, but it doesn't much matter, it just didn't work. So,
And point weighs heavily on my decision. Our mistake from the last year is a big deal with me. And our inability to support that role, I don't wanna find ourselves in the same position.
So with that logic, if you guys are comfortable with that, I mean, because it is, you guys have to like working with each other, you know, and I think that was part of our issue the first couple of years is, this is a group as a whole, not these two individuals, but that we couldn't work together, so.
Yeah, so I can comment, from, I think my standpoint and the conversations we've had, I think we were on the same page with personality wise. Either would be a great addition to our team that we feel like we could get along with and work with.
Cool.
The only personality trait that I thought, one had over the other, that, and again, it's maybe more of a personal preference, I felt that Deborah Perez came off as more blunt and straightforward, which some people don't like, but I appreciate. I felt like she was more humble and would be someone who would tell me honestly and straightforwardly, I don't understand this, I need help with it. Whereas I got the impression, again, nothing against Shelley, but that she would maybe more do the opposite, which can sometimes be a good thing, but in my experience in this role, a bad thing, trying to sort of overcompensate and be like, oh no, I got this, when in reality, she's struggling and needs help and maybe just doesn't wanna.
That's perfect, and I appreciate that, because that was the exact reason, to your point, that we all feel continually, we were told that everything's okay, from her and from the
Correct.
city, and she was being, you're telling us what she's telling you,
Yes.
okay. Good, all right, thank you for that, appreciate it.
Yeah, anybody else wanna?
I would say one of the biggest, to add on to what Heather, when Ms. Perez was talking about the budget. And I thought she was very honest with what she said, and what got me was her willingness to learn and to take on things and not have a problem with that. That to me is something that's huge.
Okay.
We don't know everything. And we have to ask for help, we have to communicate with different networks. And I get Patrick's point, Mr. Swamp's point about networking with the county. But I believe Ms. Perez, she talked about it in her county, she just wasn't in Berrien County. She was it Allegan? I think that's Allegan. That she was part of that association as well, so I don't think it would be a hard thing for her to jump into the Berrien County Association. I thought Shelley's personality was great too. She was very fun. Either one would fit in better, but I do to like the bluntness of knowing your limitations on what you can and can't do. So,
I don't know about you guys, I like bluntness in a financial person.
Well, I do too.
And
And I,
you know,
and to add on what you said, I think, you know, having a good team with good personalities where everybody, I mean, you know, I don't know, I have some comments I wanna make, but I really was gonna save them for the end. I always try to hire people who, have good work ethic, who are hopefully skilled, but who have good work ethic, and if they do, you can teach them anything. That's the great thing about human beings is they can adapt if they're smart and they're willing to work at it. And I think if you get a whole team of people like that, you can overcome a lot of things. And when you run into a roadblock or a hiccup, which is inevitable, you're going to have those, you can kind of just shrug them off and look at each other and say, this is going to pass, we'll get by it. So I think there's a lot to the personality thing and how do they fit with a team, and I think that's really important. So I'm glad you asked that question, actually. And I know that, I know that the previous treasurer weighs on everyone's mind. But if you've managed long enough, like Mark said, you're going to have made bad hires. I know I have. And you learn from them and you move on and you don't repeat it. Hopefully.
try not to.
Hopefully. But that being said, I mean, we could sit here and we could go back and forth all day long about both of them being great candidates. But I'd like to see us make a motion here soon. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I got a question. How well did the last treasurer fit in to the work environment here?
We all greatly enjoyed working with her. She was very pleasant personality-wise. I don't think the confidence level was there to be successful with the team environment that we need, or the straightforward communication, the bluntness, for lack of a better term, to be just honest as far as I need help, I need assistance. Those were the big Achilles heels for that.
So what you're saying is, she didn't present herself that way, is what you're saying. She didn't admit to what she didn't know.
Exactly, and I found that to be a huge detriment, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, cause
Which
you
we should
don't
learn from.
You
Yeah.
should, and
Yeah,
and
absolutely
if
should.
you as a manager know, I mean, that she doesn't share that she's struggling, and you're gonna go on and do 60 other things that you need to do. So I respect that.
That being said alone makes me, like your choice of Ms. Perez for the reason that she's honest and blunt and humble and willing to admit what she doesn't know.
So I'm gonna, I don't know how far we can go going back to the mistake we just made. But what strength did the last treasurer have? She was nice and she fit in, okay? She didn't have the financial background that we needed for this position. Don't wanna fall into the same thing again, where, well, she fits in nice. What's more important is who's gonna get the job done in the end.
I do agree that we need to find someone who can do the job. And I'm happy, and we all are happy to accept whatever decision the commission comes up with today. I'm not stating that I think Shelley couldn't do the job, I really do think she could. However, I think that for her to be successful, I think we would have to be ourselves blunt and straightforward and acknowledge that she would need more assistance in my professional assessment than the other candidate would right off the get. And I think that would require us to make some commitments for her to not be set up for failure, to say, look, we're gonna provide you some support through, be it Plant or Blossom Land or whomever.
So if you are so confident in Ms. Perez's abilities, why are we recommending so much additional assistance for her in your motion or your recommendation? 20 hours a week for the first 3 months, 15 hours a week?
That's for if you make an offer of employment to Ms. Lucky over
Oh,
Ms.
yeah, I
Perez.
see it,
Yeah.
Ms. Lincoln. So you don't think Ms. Perez needs any assistance from
No,
Blossom Land or
I
from-
would think that the double look conversation that we had, that maybe, a handful of hours a month wouldn't hurt, and I think would be recommended, but no, I don't believe she would need that level of assistance.
I would definitely feel better about that, just
So,
to ensure.
Ms. Linky is using Blossom Land today
Yes,
for less than 10 hours a month already.
correct.
Okay, but in township situation,
Right, I was gonna say,
I'll give you that.
okay.
I think I think it was like 4 hours a month or less actually,
Okay.
it's being used.
Well, and I think another point of reference too, in reference to our, point of reference to our previous treasurer is that, we have to take some personal responsibility too. I think we have, we indirectly, unjustly sometimes place that responsibility on you of making a bad hire, I don't mean it like that, bad hire just as far as what our capabilities were. But we had to make that decision. I know some people voted no.
Well,
Right.
and
So,
not to remember,
I just wanna bring that
and
up.
let's not forget that when we were trying to find a treasurer at that time, we couldn't find anybody.
Right, I think it was a couple months, right? that we
Yeah.
did. Alright, I wanted to put that on the record, you know, I don't want you guys to think this is always us pointing the fingers at the city for making a bad decision. We, in this particular situation, had,
If you compare it though to the last one, we only found one person again. We're not in a drastically different situation, we found one person.
I don't disagree, we did, well, we have two
And we-
in front of us, but
Yeah, but this one being the last
But I
one,
think
yeah.
this person, you know, the proof is in the pudding on paper right there, that she has a lot more experience than Stephanie did. I agree, she has 10 years of experience, that's a long time to be working in the city. And she was wearing a lot of hats. Now, that's something that I put a lot of weight into because like you said, I mean, everybody needs to be able to do different things. I mean, that's a huge win. If I find somebody like that I can hire, you know, in my business life, if you can find somebody that can do multiple things, holy cow, it's huge.
cause she can push into your positions too, as
I think
she's
that's
that good.
a very commendable trait, but on the flip side of that, it makes me wonder why the heck we have so much additional overhead then, if the community of Penville can wrap all that into one person. I don't think that we don't need you, I think we absolutely need you, but that is a very interesting statement, we're gonna put so much weight on that, then what do we need to do differently?
Here's a valid point, okay, we came from a previous situation where we only had one treasurer, but she was here for 30 years.
And we throw bodies at
I've-
problems.
I've seen situations where somebody would take 6 hours and then somebody else would go in and they'd make that job 2 hours. Doesn't mean that person was bad, there's a wall sometimes that people get to and it's not their fault, their skills instead. So I think we end up with extra people sometimes, but to that point, I think that we could look at this as an opportunity to go beyond just a treasurer. If she's as skilled in that multitasking, to your point, as we think, that's to everybody's benefit. It really just makes us all stronger, honestly.
That being said, I would like to make a motion.
Sean, I'll make a motion that we offer a position to Ms. Deborah Perez as the city treasurer for the city of Buchanan.
Thank you, is there support?
This money I'd support.
We roll call, please.
Whedon,
Yes.
Downey,
No.
Yes.
Money, Swem,
No,
Dennison,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we enter closed session. We get support.
I'll support.
Thank you. Roll call.
Downey,
Yes.
Money,
Yes.
Swem,
yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon.
Yes.
This will be super brief.
You need me again.
Yeah.
Here's your orange shoes. Here's your orange shoes you mentioned. Those are cute.
Did you hear me laugh? It's like in my corner there, I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna be so pissed off at me because I went, and that's when Swem was like, I'm not saying. Here's the thing, that's,
Wait, are we being recorded?
well, that one is, yeah.
So,
Yeah. working 50, 60 hours a week, I work on the weekends, I work at night, telling her I'm not doing it anymore. There's one down here. They'll never keep anybody.
Do I feel like
I know, and then, do you know who that's from? Well, she's like, we have to, didn't she tell you the story?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, when she comes in, wait till she sees what Mel said. She says you're her best friend. And she goes, I didn't even know her kids were alive. She goes, oh honey, her kids are alive. She's my best friend, I have to. Oh,
That's gonna be
it was the cutest thing ever. You know, I almost cried. I'm like, look at me right now. I'm like, oh my god. The sweetest little girl ever. She loves you, man.
Oh my god, when she comes in here, I'm like,
She is.
she's a baby.
No, she isn't.
You got me
Sweetheart. Yeah. No, Mel picked him out for you. She had to get him for you. I know, right? She didn't know if your kids were alive. That's what she said. Oh, good. I know, right? We've all broke down once. Now you got your turn. Oh my gosh.
All the employees there?
I'm ready to get down.
He's got his inner hippie.
I am ready to get out of this, cold weather.
Oh, man, I'll tell you
Actually,
what,
we
yeah.
can send you a video.
My time in,
of this
my time
guy
in
that's,
Phoenix,
like, lived
that
in
90
Colorado
degrees
for
is
2
just
years,
all
he's
right.
learning
Well, you were.
chops or.
I was in New Mexico.
Yeah, our Tubmans are actually called.
I think about it.
Yeah, Chaco.
Chacos, yeah.
They just show his transition from like regular shoes to Colorado wear, which is.
It was saying those, you know, the guys that, like the deep guy.
Yeah.
Someone like to make a motion to return to open session?
Sean will make said motion.
There's support.
This is money I'll support.
Money,
Yes.
Swam,
Yeah.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Downey.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Would anybody like to make a motion to consider action based on our discussions in closed session?
Sean will make a motion to approve the recommendation made in closed session for the city manager.
Thank you. Is there support?
I'll support.
Roll call please.
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Money,
Yes.
carries.
Thank you. No public. Do you have a public comment? No? No? Public comment? No public comments. Okay, let's move on to city manager comments.
I want to sincerely thank Commissioners Swim and Downey for participating and helping us with the process. Without your guys' willingness to have these meetings, we couldn't have got to this point. I want to thank the Commission at large for being willing to have a special meeting to address this. I know it's a position that's vital for our team, and the longer it's open, the more it costs the taxpayers and paying consultants. So I appreciate your willingness to take time out of your busy day to help us move that along. I want to emphasize that the comments everyone has made today have been very helpful. I appreciate everyone's feedback and support in our new hire that we're going to be bringing aboard. So I want to make sure that she sets herself up on the right foot, so the next, chance she has an opportunity to attend a meeting, even if she's not on board yet, because she shared she wanted to give 2 weeks' notice. If you guys are okay with it, I'll likely have her come and just, introduce herself to the entire commission, since not everyone's had a chance to meet her, and we will go from there, but, again, you can never make a guarantee about a person, but I feel strongly that she has a very good chance of making the team that we have here that final capstone to make it exactly what we need to have to move forward in a very positive fashion, so thank you.
Good, great, thank you. Mr. Money?
Yeah, I just wanna piggyback off that. I wanna thank Commissioner Swint and, Commissioner Downey. I think they did a great job. And we've had to rely a huge amount to, their expertise and everything, and, I just appreciate everything that, this commission has done, as far as, you know, for the betterment of the city. We've come a long way, and I think that everything that we're doing is, for the betterment of, you know, what we're here for, so, just thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Denny?
Yeah, I, wanna ask, city manager some questions about the, Plan Moran stuff. I need some answers. All the invoices and stuff that we recently did, they don't quite add up with the hours and the calendar. We got information for November, we got information for December, we got hours for another month, and none of it matches up so that you can make any sense of it. Now, you go all the way back to December 28th, where there was a flurry of emails, and we were asking for a breakdown of hours, what they were supplying, and the service they were providing. We agreed to bring in a consultant for a few hours to help us get through this. And I think at that point we discovered that we were in a bigger mess than what we anticipated. So I can show you this later and show you where the gaps are, and maybe you can help me out there.
Definitely.
But I definitely think some of the other commissioners have seen this, and I think they're in total agreement that the information just isn't all there.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to follow up on that for you.
In fact, and if I can just add on to what he's saying, so he showed me, you know, what he's talking about, and it really doesn't make sense. There's some of it that is, like, it just doesn't make sense. It's not mathematically possible, the hours that are being represented from Plan Moran, compared to the calendar. It just doesn't make sense. Nobody's working 19 hours a day is what some of it comes out to, and one person's not working 19 hours a day. If they are, something's really, really wrong. So I think
And
we
I'm not
just,
saying it's the answer to it, but at one point we had 3 different people from Plant Moran assisting.
no, yeah, no,
So that
I know.
could be it.
But just
I'm not
looking at the responses we got in emails, looking at the actual invoices we got, and then when you put that on a calendar, it doesn't make sense.
Gotcha.
So if we could get some further explanation,
Yeah,
I think it would
absolutely.
put everyone at ease.
I would imagine what's probably happening is that when Plant Moran sent it in, and maybe they didn't understand the significance of why they needed to include the additional people if they were there in the breakdown of the hours. When you look at their response and then you tie it back to the cost, it's like,
I'm thinking that they're keeping better records than they're sharing with us.
I
Somebody
would agree with
knows,
that, yeah,
somebody
somewhere
knows what they've
who
been
worked
doing.
what hours.
Exactly.
you're a lawyer.
So if we could-
If billable hours, you know.
And surely they're smart enough to know that they need to keep better records. And I'm hoping that they do, and that they can share those with us, is where we're all going with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll reach out to them, see if I can't get more detail for all the past year's invoices, and then let them know that we really have to insist upon that moving forward. I fully agree. I've wanted more
I mean-
detailed invoices from them from the beginning. I've requested them multiple times, and for quite a while, they just were sort of, I was ignoring my requests, but they weren't really complying with it as fully as I would have
I
liked.
mean, what we've spent on Plant Moran is astronomical, and it deserves being dug into, in my
I agree.
Yeah, at that rate, for sure.
Well, we had talked, somewhere along the lines of having a meeting with Plant Moran and getting, this all ironed out, and then you guys had a meeting with Kenley,
on Saturday morning,
and
and that really had nothing to do with this.
well,
It did.
these questions would
It
have
did,
come up.
it was because Cameron brought up how much we were Well,
I
what
think that-
transpired after that was now we don't have a treasurer.
But in Kenley's, yeah, that's.
I think it just makes if we're inquisitive as to, I don't know, my underlying thought is that what else are they not telling us? If they knew it was that bad and they kept going without details, and I think to your point, Cameron, that we want the minutia. Like,
Well, I would just like to understand more of what they're actually charging us for, because the hours don't add up.
Agreed.
So-
Well, they'll
That's
give you
really
the
basic.
list of what they're charging you for. We have that.
But if it doesn't make sense, we need to argue it, I mean, that's what, so. Okay, is that all? Yeah. Commissioner Swett?
You know, I think it's a loud statement that we moved against the recommendation of the interview committee from commissioner's standpoint, so I just wanted to put it out there that I was disappointed in that, and for me, you weighed heavily on the success of this individual. I believe in you, but it is a very big deal to me. That's all I have to say.
It's interesting, because mine was in the same lines, but on the other side, having sat in a position where we were the party that was recommending something, and it went directly against the avenue of the other commissioners, not the two, but the other one, understandably. I don't feel apologetic for it. I think that I trust that you two individuals and the interviews that you did and the experience you had dictated your vote, and I respect that. I really do. I think that it was justified. Once again, I was on the fence, as I always seem to be with this group, as I do in two. Somehow I get the one that gets the last shot, so let me go first next time when somebody else can. I think it was the right decision. I really do, because I look at it as, I'm a teams manager. It's always been my fault, it's always been my problem, it's always been I care too much about the people. I do agree with Patrick, it is on this team now, you guys pushed it. We agreed to it, that's not to point fingers, obviously we would all collectively have to eat that. As the city goes, we all eat that, you know, a mistake, if it is one, I don't think it will be. I'm pleased that we had two strong candidates, compared to the previous experience and the previous one to that, which was before these two individuals. So it's just a lot of up and down with this position. So I wish Ms. Perez the best. I hope that she brings to the table as much as we anticipate she will. And I hope that the two no votes, hopefully they're solidified by her ability to handle the position, so.
That's it?
Mhm.
Thank you. I'm gonna direct my comments to my fellow commissioners this morning. There's something that's been weighing on my mind, and I feel like it's important enough that I need to bring it up publicly, and at least have you guys start doing some reflecting and think about what I'm about to say. First, I'd like to say I'm very proud of the things that we've done as a commission, and I'm very proud of the people that we've hired. I think Rich and Heather have proven themselves, and I couldn't be happier with the job that they're doing. But as leaders, and as a city commission, we don't have anyone other than the voters to give us a job review or to tell us how we're doing. And I think it falls upon us to do some self-reflection, and to be humble enough to say, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we do better? And so I would ask the four of you, and I'm doing it myself, to ask yourselves, are we being the best commission we can be? Are we being the best managers and bosses we can be? And I think we have to be humble enough to say that we don't know everything. I think the weird thing is we want the best for the city of Buchanan, and we're pushing very hard to be a good commission that's effective in getting things done, and we do have we have a strong agenda. I mean, there's a lot of things we're working on that are awesome. When we have a lot of sticks in the fire right now, so and I'm very proud of that. However, I'm seeing some things that are raising red flags to me, and I'm very concerned. Concerned enough that
So one of them is, so I'll tell you, there's 2 red flags. One of them is overworked employees. I'm seeing emails from people all hours of the night, which worries me. I'm hearing stories of people pulling all-nighters and being here in the morning when people come to work. I'm hearing stories of people working on weekends and Sundays. And then the other red flag that I'm seeing is when the city administration or staff brings us their plans to improve their jobs, we aren't listening. And if I can, if you will let me, this isn't to toot my own horn. This is just my management philosophy and the way I've done things in my professional career. And the only reason I bring it up is because it works. It's worked for me. If I knew about grant writing, I would give you my opinion on how I think we could be better grant writers, but I don't know that. All I know is how to manage people. I've always tried to hire smart, talented people with skills. And if they don't have skills, but they have work ethic, like I mentioned earlier, I can teach them skills. And I'm proud to say that I think we've done it. We've hired good people here. The next thing that I do as a manager is I try to provide the equipment and the resources to allow those people with skills to be effective at their jobs. And if I do that, they're winning, the customer's winning, and I'm winning. And then the last thing that I try to do as a manager is I try to respond to situations in a way where when something happens, I try to think, if I was the employee, how would I want my manager to react? How would I want them to handle the situation? So when things happen, I try to put myself in their position to see, do I want my leader to get mad at that? Do I want my leader to, how do I want my manager to respond? So anyway, again, the only reason I'm saying that is because doing those things has worked for me in the past, and so I offer that. But how does that tie into the city? Well, I think it's important to remember my concerns aren't just with this sitting commission or these employees. It has to do with, I think we're setting precedent for future commissions and future city staff. And I would, in my view, the role of the city commission is to set legislative and policy trajectory of the city. We should hire good people, which I think we can check off. We've done it. We aim the ship where we want it to go. I think we can check that off. We've done that. They're working towards the things we want them to work towards. And then we need to get out of their way. And I think we've done 2 of those things very well, but I don't think that we've done that one well enough. Running the city is what they do. It's not what we do. I mentioned earlier that, and this is a slam, this is just the truth, none of us has municipal experience. They do. And I think that we need to put weight behind what they're telling us. When they ask us for things, we really need to listen. Just cut to the chase, I think we're micromanaging the people we've selected to run the city. And I think we're ignoring their pleas for help. Last Monday, Julie asked us for less window hours. That's because they need to get work done. And it's not because they want to have a party and close the window, it's because they want to get work done, which I think is an awesome thing for them to come and ask. So I have serious concerns about burning people out, or frustrating them to the point that they leave, which is going to put us back at ground zero, and we're going to be starting over. We're going to have to go find another city manager, or find an economic development director, or find a chamber person, or find a new clerk. And the bottom line is we have put a lot on their plate, and we're asking them to do a lot. And when they come to us and they say, we need more time to get our work done, we need to heed what they say. That's a plea for help. We've ignored it. And I feel bad about it. And I apologize to the city that we didn't listen to it when they asked us for help. And I think if we can stop micromanaging and let them do their jobs, I think 2 things will happen. I think number one, they'll get more done, because they won't be chasing everything we have them doing, number one. Which will let them focus on getting things done without being interrupted or feeling like, I need to do this for that person, I need to do this for that commissioner, I need to do this. So I think they'll be more productive that way. And number two, I think it's better for morale, if they're not stressed at work, if they're happier at work, if they feel like they enjoy coming to work more, they're going to be more productive, because happier workers are better workers. So, and I'm saying that because there are times, and I hate to, I don't wanna talk about private conversations I've had with Heather, but I can sense when she calls me sometimes, I can feel the stress in her voice. And I know that she doesn't know what to do at this point, because she feels like she needs to go in 8 directions at one time and feels almost frozen, because how can you make progress on anything when the target's constantly changing and you're being pulled from this and you want to get that done, but you have to go do that instead. And so I feel like at some point, I feel like we're stepping over dollars to get the dimes in a sense. And I think that if we could just back off and let the city staff and city administration do what they do, that they'll call us and they'll say, I want your input on this, I need your help with this, rather than us constantly telling them, I want you to do this, we want you to do that, this is how you should do that. I just think that we need to sit back and think a little bit more about how we're working as a commission. I think that we can be better. I think we're good, and I've heard recently from several people that they believe we're doing a good job. But I think we can be better. So I would just ask you to consider that and maybe just think about what each of us can do to make their lives easier, and to give them the tools they need to do the job that we're asking of them. So that is my comments. That being said, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make said motion.
Thank you. Is there support?
I'll support.
Give a roll call, please.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Buddy,
Yes.
Swett.
Yes.
You're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, don't forget their wonderful blueberry muffins.
Inside yourself. Take a couple.
You got a minute? Better if you have a moment to go with it.
Have a good day, everybody.
Wait, you know what, I do, but actually, we're supposed to go to Randy as soon as this meeting's done, to do that towards me. If you still wanna do that, that's probably just calling me right now, did you still wanna check out the EV building or?
Yeah, I just like.
Was there anyone
how-